You don't have to be right all the time. You just don't have to be right all the time. It takes a mature person, though, to do that. And with Jacob, Jacob was ready to give animals, give him servants, all these donkeys and camels, and he wanted to make it right with Esau. Of course, he's afraid he might kill him. But it was a beautiful thing that these brothers could reconcile at this point in their lives. One of the things in the scriptures that it teaches us, these stories, these are real events. They're really, I call them stories. It actually happened, and God, through His own divine choosing, He chose Jacob. He preferred Jacob to bring about the 12 tribes of Israel. All his boys, his 12 kids that he had with Leah and Rachel and the 2 handmaidens. That was a mixed up family. You know, you think, well, my family's messed up. Where do you think the 12 tribes of Israel come from? They were a pretty messed up family. Some of them were children by handmaidens, some by Rachel, some by Leah. And the next week's lesson, as we look at it, says Joseph becomes a slave. The two children that he had with Rachel, one of them was Joseph. There's more scripture in the Old Testament written about Joseph and his life than any other subject in the Old Testament. It's a powerful learning experience to study the book of Genesis and learn about Joseph. Anybody with a comment or anything as we close?
Dave, I enjoyed your lesson. But today, just like then, God still uses broken people.
Yeah.
And we're all broken. We're all broken, and God still uses us.
Yeah.
So that is a great thing. Satan will use that against us. If we're not careful, he'll use our brokenness against us and rob us of joy and peace. Amen. So let's just remember, God loves us. It's not God's will that any should perish, but all would be saved. But He has to come to broken people.
Yeah.
All are broken. It says it's not His will that any should be lost. Well, who's lost? Everybody's lost.
Yeah.
So God still uses broken people, and we're going to see this all down through the book of Genesis into Exodus. So God's trying to tell us something today. This thing, what happened 4,000 years ago, is just as real today in 2025 as it ever was. So that's a great lesson, and if people's not been studying it, study it. You're not going to get much out of it if you don't study it. I learned many years ago. If you just come to Sunday school on Sunday morning and never look at your lesson or read your Bible through the week and get prepared for what God's got for you, the food will be put out there just like today. The pastor's going to put food out for us because we live by every word of God. Amen. And if you don't prepare and chew it, you're not going to get nothing out of it much. Just a little bit.
That's right. We didn't talk much about when the angel asked Jacob what his name was, and he said it's Jacob. And he said, you're not going to be called Jacob anymore. He changed his name there to Israel. And just a little bit of comment in our reading, what the word Israel means. Let me read you this. It says the second challenging word to translate is Jacob's new name, Israel. And that Jacob had striven, and the explanation for that word Israel is Jacob had striven with God and with men and prevailed. Israel may mean God fights. God had to fight against Jacob. But upon Jacob's submission, God would fight for him. And God did fight for Jacob. And if you just look at the history of his descendants, God intervened in miraculous ways. Jacob's wrestling match with God was a fight that Jacob lost. But he limped away with a blessing. And this encounter he would never forget. You see him later on, chapter 48 in Genesis. And Joseph got his two boys, Ephraim and Manasseh. And the older one, was supposed to get the blessing. But as Joseph put the older one up toward the bed, and it says somewhere that Jacob's leaning on his staff at this point in this encounter. He's still got that limp. He still needs a walking stick to lean on. And instead of giving the blessing to the older one, he switched his hands over and gave the right hand to the younger. At that point, you think, well, what's he doing that for? The older one's supposed to get the blessing, and he's still being the trickster, Israel, Jacob. But really, he's not. I think it just says this, and I've thought about that a lot. He knows that God blessed him and the mess that he went through and how deceptive and he was. He knows God blessed him immensely. And God can still do this with these grandbabies here I've got. I'm going to switch it on them, because it wasn't so much what he did that there's going to be a blessing to them grandkids. He knew God would give them the blessing. And I just like that. I like that the way it ends there with him switching on his grandkids and all. One thing I heard a guy say about Esau, how did God manifest his hate toward Esau? Where I think Romans says that God hated Esau, but he loved Jacob. One way that God manifested, and that word hate, we get that, it's preferred. Really, it's God preferred Jacob. Not that so much that he hated Esau. He preferred Jacob. Is more the word there, that's an accurate word. But one way that God manifested his preference of Jacob over Esau was that he never did in Esau's whole life, he never did discipline him like he did Jacob. He had to discipline Jacob every phase of his life, with the wrestling and doing this and that, and had to work 14 years to get a wife that he wanted. And God was working with Jacob his whole life. He was forming him. He was disciplining Jacob. And Esau, he never brought him under. His people were judged. The Edomites were, and totally wiped out. But he didn't deal individually. If you're a son of God or a child of God, you're going to experience some discipline. And the Scripture says to be glad about it. Why would you be glad to get a whipping? Because it means you're God's child. That's the reason. We're probably running up on time. Thank you for listening, and let's worship together today.